My name is Sophie Taylor. I was 15, just a normal teenager living in a suburban town in Ohio. I went to school, did my homework, and hung out with friends.
Like many of my classmates, I thought vaping was harmless, a fun little escape from stress. I never imagined it could end like this. It happened on a Friday evening. I was alone in my bedroom, puffing quietly, scrolling through my phone. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all of it blending into one endless loop of videos and posts. I laughed at memes, envied strangers' lives, and posted selfies to see how many likes I could get. It felt exciting, addicting, and normal. But then my chest tightened. My heart raced. I fell to the floor, coughing, struggling to breathe. The room spun. I thought I was going to pass out, but I never thought I would die. The next moments were strange, more vivid than anything I had experienced. I felt myself lift out of my body, the room, my bed. Even my phone seemed to fall away, as though I were rising through air I couldn't feel. A warm, soft light surrounded me. It wasn't bright like a lamp or harsh like the sun. It felt alive, almost like it was breathing. And then I saw him, Jesus. He didn't look like the pictures from Sunday school or church books. He wasn't in a white robe or glowing with halos. He looked powerful, radiant, and real, in a way I had never imagined. But it wasn't frightening, it was comforting, almost magnetic. I felt my heart calm instantly. I wanted to touch the light, but I didn't need to. Just being near him made the fear, the pain, the regret fade. He didn't speak with words, but I understood everything. It was like he could reach into my mind and heart at the same time. And the first thing he showed me wasn't me. It was the internet, social media, the apps I thought were innocent, fun. I saw faces glued to screens, eyes dull, thumbs moving constantly. Shadows lurked in the edges of every post, every notification. They whispered lies. You're not good enough. You're missing out. You need this. And the more people listened, the stronger the shadows grew. I felt panic in my chest. Not mine, but theirs. You see what your generation is facing, Jesus said. Not with sound, but with certainty that settled in my soul. These devices are not just tools. They are highways for deception, envy, and despair. And you, Sophie, you are in danger because you feed the shadows with every second you spend lost in them. I felt a jolt of shame. I had laughed, scrolled, and posted, oblivious to the harm being done to myself and to others. Then, he showed me my life, every choice, every puff of the vape, every minute, lost scrolling, all connected to threads of darkness I hadn't noticed. The shadows were real, and they were everywhere, influencing my thoughts, my feelings, my heart. I wanted to fight them, but I didn't know how. Jesus didn't scold me. He simply showed me the truth. And then I saw my parents. I saw their worry, their tears, their prayers rising like golden threads that reached for me even before I had passed away. And I realized something profound. The shadows could not exist without the light being ignored. Every act of love, every prayer, every moment of genuine connection was a golden thread that could push the darkness away. I wanted to hold onto those threads. I wanted to come back. Suddenly, I was back in my body. The bright hospital lights stung my eyes. Tubes and wires ran from my arms and chest. Machines beeped urgently. My parents were there, panic etched into their faces. "Sophie, stay with us," my mom cried. I tried to speak, but a tube in my throat made it impossible. My eyes met my dad's, and I squeezed his hand with all the strength I had. I had been dead for nearly 10 minutes. Doctors later told my parents it was miraculous that my heart restarted on its own, and that I showed no lasting brain damage. But I wasn't thinking about the science. My mind was still swimming in the visions Jesus had shown me. The shadows, the golden threads, the choices that lead to despair or life. I could still feel them. And now, I had a mission. Jesus had not left me alone. I could feel him closer than air, guiding my thoughts, strengthening my heart. He showed me another vision, this time focused on my peers. Teenagers everywhere, isolated in their rooms, scrolling endlessly, chasing validation from strangers, comparing themselves to impossible standards. I felt their pain, their fear, their loneliness. It was crushing, and yet I saw hope. A simple act, a message of kindness, a smile to a friend, a real conversation without devices was enough to start cutting through the darkness. Your generation has power, he told me, but it is being misused. You must choose wisely. I understood. Social media itself wasn't evil. It was the way we surrendered our hearts to it, the way we allowed shadows to whisper unchecked lies. And I could fight back. I could be a thread of light. The next days were surreal. I recovered physically, but my mind could not rest. I wanted to tell everyone, friends, family, classmates, what I had seen. I wanted to make them understand that their attention was sacred, that every moment spent scrolling could either feed shadows or protect the golden threads. And I realized the most important battles were invisible. The moments we choose, love over comparison, empathy over cruelty, presence over distraction. At school, I started small. I talked to my best friend about what had happened. Carefully. It's real, I whispered. The shadows, the pressure, they're real, and we have to fight them. She listened, tears in her eyes. Slowly, we started helping others. We organized phone-free lunches, encouraged face-to-face conversations, reminded our peers that validation comes from love and connection, not likes and shares. The transformation was gradual. Some kids resisted, some mocked, but others listened. And every small change, every golden thread restored, made the shadows shrink just a little. I understood now what Jesus had meant. Every choice mattered. Every act of love, every prayer, every moment of real attention was a strike against the darkness. The days after my return were a blur of hospital visits, recovery, and endless questions. My body was healing, but my mind was on fire with everything I had seen. I replayed the tunnel, the light, Jesus, the shadows, and the golden threads over and over. It was like a movie I couldn't pause, a message I couldn't ignore. I remember lying in my hospital bed, staring at the sterile white ceiling, and thinking about the countless teens like me who were lost. I thought about the pressures, the comparisons, the endless scroll of social media that consumed their hearts. Jesus had shown me that it wasn't just entertainment, it was a battlefield for the soul. Every post, every video, every click was like a tiny spark. It could ignite hope or feed the shadows. I realized that the shadows weren't just external, they were internal too. They thrived on our insecurities, our jealousy, our loneliness, and our need to be validated by strangers. Then I saw my friends, Maya, Ellie, my classmates. I remembered how absorbed we were in our phones, how easily we ignored each other in favor of likes and comments. I felt a pang of guilt. I wanted to shout at everyone, "Wake up! This is dangerous." But how could I? They didn't know what I knew. They didn't see the shadows whispering, twisting hearts and minds. Jesus' voice returned in that quiet, indescribable way, not through sound but through understanding. "Sophie, you must return fully. Your body is back, but your spirit must act. The shadows can only dominate when hearts are given freely to them. Be the light, show the way." And I understood I couldn't just survive. Surviving wasn't enough. I had to live with purpose, to fight for others, to guide them away from the darkness. The first step was mine. I deleted several apps I had relied on for validation. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, gone from my phone. I didn't stop scrolling entirely, but I limited it, intentionally choosing what I consumed. Every video I watched or shared now had to pass a test. Does it encourage love, understanding, or empathy? Or does it feed the shadows? It was exhausting at first, like learning a new language, but it felt right. I felt lighter, freer, like a weight had been lifted from my chest. Then came the challenge of talking to others. I started small. My best friend Maya sat beside me in our room one afternoon, phone in hand. "Sophie, are you serious? Deleting everything?" she asked. I nodded. "I need to. I saw what happens when we don't control it. I can't explain it, but it's real. The shadows are real." She rolled her eyes at first, skeptical, but I could see the spark of curiosity in her. "You're saying Social media is dangerous? She whispered. I nodded again. Not inherently, but it can consume you if you don't guard your heart. We need to pay attention to what we give our minds to, what we let into our souls. Word spread slowly. Some laughed, some ignored me, but a few listened, and it was enough to plant seeds. We started a small group at school, meeting once a week to talk about digital wellness, emotional health, and the importance of real human connection. We shared experiences, fears, and tips on how to resist the pull of constant scrolling. I could see the change in people, not immediately, but in subtle ways. Eyes met eyes again, instead of staring at screens. Conversations grew deeper. Laughter became more authentic. But Jesus' message was clear. It wasn't enough to focus on just me or my small circle. The shadows were everywhere, feeding envy, anxiety, and anger across the generation. Every viral challenge, every perfectly curated photo, every trending drama was a spark that could ignite despair if hearts were unguarded. I began to pray more intentionally, not just for myself, but for my friends, for strangers, for every teen I had never met. I imagined golden threads stretching from my heart to theirs, invisible lines of protection against the shadows. And then I felt a nudge, like a whisper of understanding. The fight wasn't just personal, it was spiritual. It was about creating a culture where hearts were valued more than feeds, where empathy trumped envy, and where connection overcame the isolation that social media often encouraged. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a messenger, and for the first time, I understood that even small acts mattered. A single text of encouragement, a message of support, a real conversation, instead of a meme, could start cutting through the darkness. Jesus didn't promise it would be easy. He didn't say the shadows would disappear completely, but he showed me that every moment we choose love over comparison, mercy over judgment, connection over distraction, we push back against them. And that was my mission. My survival was no longer just about me. It was about carrying light into a world that desperately needed it. Weeks passed, and my body grew stronger, but my mind was constantly replaying the visions Jesus had shown me. I could never forget the tunnel, the light, the whispers, or the golden threads. Every time I thought about my near-death experience, I felt both awe and urgency. I knew I had been given a glimpse of something far greater than life itself, and a responsibility I couldn't ignore. At school, I started speaking openly about my experience, careful not to sound like I was preaching, but sharing what I had learned. I told my classmates about the dangers of mindless scrolling, the subtle ways social media could feed envy, fear, and insecurity. I talked about the shadows, not as literal monsters, but as the voices and influences that amplified our doubts, our anger, and our loneliness. Some laughed, some rolled their eyes, but a few stopped and listened, and that was enough to plant seeds. I realized that my mission wasn't about banning social media or isolating myself from the world. It was about awareness, intention, and choice. Every time I posted something, I asked myself, is this feeding the light or feeding the shadows? Every time I shared a story, I asked, am I spreading love, hope, or understanding? Or am I adding to the noise that confuses and divides? The shift was subtle, but powerful. I felt like a small lighthouse in a storm, a single point of light in a vast sea of distraction. One afternoon, I sat with my little brother, Jamie, showing him how to set boundaries on his phone and encouraging him to think critically about the content he consumed. He looked up at me with wide eyes and whispered, "Sophie, you're right. I didn't realize how much it was affecting me. That moment was worth everything." Jesus had shown me that the battle wasn't against technology itself, but against the way hearts could be drawn away from truth, connection, and love. Helping even one person find their way back was a victory. I also prayed constantly, asking Jesus to protect my friends, my classmates, and everyone in my generation from the shadows. I imagined those golden threads of light stretching out from my heart and connecting to theirs, offering protection, hope, and guidance. I remembered the flashes of my near-death experience, the moments of mercy offered to my killer, the missed chances, the tiny sparks of light rejected, and I vowed to honor those lessons by helping others recognize the light before it was too late. Through the months, I noticed changes not just in myself, but in those around me. People who had been obsessed with likes and followers started seeking real connection. We began small acts of kindness, sharing encouragement, supporting each other offline, and having honest conversations. Social media didn't disappear, but it became a tool rather than a master. The shadows still whispered, but their influence weakened with every heart that chose awareness, love, and mercy. And then one night, as I lay in bed reflecting on everything, I felt the presence of Jesus again, gentle and familiar, not as a teacher or a preacher, but as a loving guide. He didn't need to speak. I understood. The light he showed me wasn't just a vision, it was a living truth that could transform the world if we carried it. He reminded me that every choice mattered, every act of love, every moment of forgiveness, every conversation that healed rather than hurt, pushed back the darkness. I realized that surviving my near-death experience wasn't just a miracle, it was a call to action. Life wasn't about scrolling, comparing, or seeking approval. It was about choosing light over shadows, truth over deception, love over anger, and connection over isolation. And for my generation, for Gen Z, it was a chance to change the world, not through fame or likes, but through the power of hearts guided by light. As I closed my eyes that night, I whispered a prayer for every teen who felt lost, anxious, or trapped in the endless loop. Social media. You are loved, I whispered. You are seen, and you can choose the light, even when the world seems dark. I remembered Jesus' words from the tunnel. Your story is not just yours, it is theirs. Go and guide them. And I understood, fully, that this was my mission, my purpose, and my gift. I opened my eyes the next morning, a deep calm in my chest. I was alive. I had a second chance, and I would not waste it. The shadows were real, but so was the light, and I was determined to shine it as far as I could reach.